The doom that came to Sarnath. There is in the land of Minar a vast still lake that is fed by no stream, and out of which no stream flows. 10,000 years ago there stood by its shore the mighty city of Sarnath, but Sarnath stands there no more. It is told that in the immemorial years when the world was young, before ever the man of Sarnath came to the land of Minar, another city stood beside the lake, the grey stone city of Ib, which was as old as the lake itself, and the people of the beings not pleasing to behold, very old and ugly were these beings, as indeed are most beings of the world, yet in Chiate and rudely fashioned. It is written on the brick cylinders of Cadartheron that the beings of Ib were in hue as green as the lake and the mist, that the city above it, that they had bulging eyes, pouty, flapping lips, and curious ears, and were without voice. It is also written that they descended one night from the moon in a mist, and they in the vast still lake and grey stone city of Ib. However this may be, it is certain that they worshipped a sea green stone idol chiseled in the likeness of Bokrug, the great water lizard, before which they danced horribly when the moon was gibbous, and it is written in the papyrus of Illurenek that one day they discovered fire, and thereafter kindled flames on many ceremonial occasions, but not much is written of these beings because they lived in very ancient times, and man is young and knows very little of the very ancient living things. After many eons, men came to the land of Minar, the dark shepherd folk, and their fleecy flocks who built Thra, Illurenek, and Cadartheron on the winding river Ai, and certain tribes, more hardy than the rest, pushed on to the border of the lake and built Sarnath, at a spot where precious metals were found in the earth. Not far from the grey city of Ib did the wandering tribes lay the first stones of Sarnath, and at the beings of Ib they marveled greatly, but with their marveling was mixed hate, for they thought it not meet that beings of such aspect should walk about the world of men and dust, nor did they like the strange sculptures upon the great monoliths of Ib, for those sculptures lingered so late in the world even until the coming men, and none can tell unless it was because the land of Minar is very still, and remote from the most of the lands, both of waking and of dream. As the men of Sarnath beheld more of the beings of Ib, their hate grew, and it was not less because they found the beings weak, soft as jelly, as with the touch of stones and arrows. So one day the young warriors and the slingers and the spearmen and the bowmen marched against Ib, and slew all the inhabitants thereof, pushing the queer bodies into the lake with long spears because they did not wish to touch them, and because they did not like the grey sculptured monoliths of Ib, they cast thee also into the lake, and wondering from the greatness of the labor, however the stones were brought from afar, as they must have been, since there is not like them in the land of Minar, or in the lands of adjacent. Thus of the very ancient city of Ib was nothing spared save the sea green stone idol chiseled in the likeness of Bokrug, the water lizard. This is the young warriors took back of them as symbol conquest over the old gods and beings of Ib, and the sign of leadership in Minar. But on the night after it was set up in the temple, a terrible thing must have happened, for weird lights were seen over the lake, and in the morning the people found the idol gone and the high priest Tyran-Ish lying dead, as from some fear unspeakable. Before he died, Tyran-Ish inscribed doom upon the altar of the chrysolite, which the coarse shaky strokes to the sign of doom. After Tyran-Ish there were many high priests of Sarnath, but never was the sea green stone idol found, and many centuries came and went, wherein Sarnath prospered exceedingly, so that only priests and old women remembered with Tyran-Ish had scrolled upon the altar of the chrysolite betwixt Sarnath and the city of Illurenek, while always a caravan round, and the precious metals from the earth were exchanged for other metals, and rare cloths and jewels and books and tools for artificers, and all other things of luxury. They are known to the people who dwell along the winding river Ai, and beyond. So Sarnath waxed mighty and learned and beautiful, and sent forth conquering armies to subdue the neighboring cities, and in time there sate upon a throne the Sarnath kings of the land of Minar, and of many lands adjacent. The wonder of the world and the pride of all mankind was Sarnath, the magnificent of polished desert, quarried marble were its walls, and height 300 cubits, and breadth 75, so that the chariots might pass each other as men drove them along the top. 500 sabia did they run, being open only on the side towards the lake, where greenstone sea wall kept back on the waves that rose audibly once a year at the festival of destroying of Ib. In Sarnath were 50 streets from the lake to the gates of the caravans, and 50 more intersecting them with onyx where they paved, save those whereon the horses and camels and elephants rode, which were paved with granite. And the grants of Sarnath were as many as the landward ends of the streets, each of bronze and flanked by the figures of lions and elephants. Caravan from some stone no longer known among men. The house of Sarnath were of glazed brick and shot in the having its walled garden and crystal lapillet of strange art were they builded, for no other city had houses like them. The travelers from Thra and Illurenek and Cadartheron marveled at the shining domes where they were surrounded, but more marvelously still were the palaces and the temples and the gardens made by Zophar, the olden king. There were many palaces, the last of which were mightier than any in Thra or Illurenek. On Cadartheron, so high were they that one within might sometimes fancy themselves beneath only the sky, yet when light of the torches dipped in the oil of Zephyr, their walls showed vast paintings of kings and armies of splendor at once, inspiring stupefying to the beholder. Many were the pillars of the palaces, all tinted marble and carved into the designs with surpassing beauty, and most of the houses the floors were mosaics of Ariel and lapis and lazuli, sardonyx and carbunicle, and other choice materials, so disposed that the beholder might fancy himself walking over beds of rarest flowers. And there were likewise fountains which cast scented waters of and pleasing jets, a range of cunning art, of shining all others was the house of King Minar, and the lands of adjacent. On a pair of golden carriaging lions rested the throne many steps above the gleaming floor, and it wrought of one piece of ivory, though no man lives who knows whence so vast a piece could have come. In that palace there were also many galleries and many amphitheaters, where lions and men and elephants battled at the pleasure of the kings. Sometimes amphitheaters were flooded with water conveyed from the lake and the mighty aqueducts, and then were enacted stirring sea fights or combats betwixt swimmers and deadly marine things. Lofty and amazing were the 17 tower-like temples of Sarnath, fashioned of bright multicolored stone hewn known elsewhere, of 12,000 cubits high, so the greatest among them, wherein the high priest dwelt in magnificence, scarce less than that of the kings. On the ground were halls of vast and splendid as those of palaces, where gathered throngs and worshipped of Zopilar, and Tamash, and Laban, and the chief gods of Sarnath. who incense and in shrines were thrones of monarchs, not like the Echions of the older gods, who those of so Lakar and so Mash and Labon were so close to life, were they that one might swear the graceful period gods themselves sate on ivory thrones, and up unending steps of their home was a tower chamber wherefrom the high priest looked out over the city and the plains and night by day, and at the cryptic moon and the significant stars and planets and their reflections in the lake at night. Here this was done, the very secret ancient rites and the devastation of the frog and the water lizard, and here rested the altar of crystallized which bore the doomed scroll of Terranish. Wonderful likewise were the gardens made by Zokar, the Olden King. In the center of Sarnath they lay, covering a great space and encircled by a high wall, and they were surrounded by a mighty dome of glass, through which shone the sun and moon and planets when it was clear, and from which were hung long-bent images of the sun and moon and stars and planets. When not clear in summer, the gardens were full of fresh odors, breezes, skillfully wafted by fans, and in winter they were heated with concealed fires. So in those gardens it was always spring. There ran little streams over bright pebbles, dividing meads of green and gardens of many hues, and sand by multitudes of ridges. Many of the waterfalls and the courses and the lakelets rode white swans, whilst the music of rare birds chimed in with the melody of the waters. In ordered terraces rose the green banks along here and there were bowers of vines and sweet blossoms, and seats of benches of marble and porphyry, and there were many small shrines and temples where one might rest or pray to small gods. Each year there were celebrated in Sarnath the feast of the destroying of Ib, at which time wine, song, dancing, and merriment of every kind abounded. Great honors were then paid to the shades of those who had annihilated the old ancient beings, and the memory of those beings and the elder gods was derided by the dancers, and Lutanus crowned with roses from the gardens of Zokar, and the kings would look out of the lake and curse the bones of the dead that lay beneath it. At first the high priest liked not these festivals, for there had descended amongst them queer tales of how the sea-green Echion had vanished, and how Terranish had died from fear and left a warning, and they said that there from their high tower they sometimes saw lights beneath the waters of the lake, but as many years passed without calamity, even the priests laughed and cursed and joined in the orgies of the feasters. Indeed, they not themselves in their high tower often performed the very ancient and secret rites and detestation of the buckfrog, the water lizard, and 1,000 years of riches and light passed over Sarnath. Wonder of the world, gorgeous beyond thought was the feast of the 1,000th year of the destroying of Ib. For a decade had it been taught in the land of Minar, and it drew nigh there from came to Sarnath on horses and camels and elephants men from Thra, Ilononach, and Kedarfehan, cities of Minar, in the lands beyond. Before the marble walls of that winter night were pitched in the pavilions of the princes and the tents of the travelers. Within the banquet hall reclined Naras Haya, the king had drunken in the much ancient wine from the walls of the conquered Konoth. Though surrounded by the feasting nobles and hurrying slaves, there were eaten many strange delicacies at that feast: peacocks from the distant hills of Inkland, heels of camels from the Benazik desert, nuts and spices from the Sedathrain groves, and pearls from the wave-washed metal, dissolved in the vinegar of Thra. Of the sauces there were untold number, prepared by the subtlest cooks in all Minar, and suited to the plated of every feaster. By most prized of all the viands were the great fishes from the lake, each of which of vast size hot, and served upon golden platters set with rubies and lots of king. Rubies and diamonds, whilst the king and nobles feasted within their palace, and viewed crowning dish as it awaited them on the golden platters. Others feasted elsewhere in the tower of the great temple. The priests held revels, and in pavilions with their walls and the princes of the neighboring lands were made of merry, and it was the high priest Kenaika who first saw the shadows that descended from the gibbous moon into the light and the damnable green mist that arose from the light to meet the noon, and shrouded in the censer haze the towers and the dunes of the fated Sarnath. Thereafter those in the towers and without the walls beheld strange lights on the water, and saw the great rock Akurion, which was wont to rear high above it near the shore, was almost submerged, and fear grew vaguely yet swiftly, so that the princes of Florinac and of Rorokol took down, folded their tents in the pavilions, and departed. They scarce knew the reason for their departing. Then close to the hour of midnight all the bronze gates of Sarnath burst open and emptied forth a frenzy among men blackened the plain, so that all the visiting princes and travelers fled away in fright. For on the faces of the throng was written madness born of horror unendurable, and on their tongues were words so terrible that no ear paused for breath. Men whose eyes were wild with fear shrieked aloud out of the sight within the king's banquet hall, where through the windows were seen no longer the forms of Nargis high and his nobles and slaves, but a horde of inscrutable green voiceless things, with bulging eyes, pouting flattering lips, and curious ears which had danced horribly, bearing in their paws golden platters set with rubies and diamonds and containing cloth flames. The princes and travelers, as they fled from the doomed city of Sarnath on the horses and camels and elephants, looked upon the midst begetting lake and saw the great rock Option that was quite submerged. Through the land of Minar and the land adjacent spread the tales of those who fled from Sarnath, and the caravans sought that accursed city and its precious metals no more. It was long ere many travelers went thither, and even then on the brave and adventurous young men of yellow hair and blue eyes who are no kinsmen of Minar. These men indeed went to the lights of Sarnath, and though they found the vast of the lake itself and great rock Akurion, which rears high above it near the shore, they beheld not the wonder of the world cried to mankind, where once had risen walls of 300 cubits and towers yet higher, now stretched only the marshy shore, where once had dwelt 50 million of men now crawled the detestable water lizard. Now even the mines of precious metal remained. Doom had come to Sarnath. And thus half buried in the rushes was by a curious green idol, an exceeding idol, chiseled in the likeness of Balkrug, the great water lizard. That idol enshrined in the high temple at Lurnek, and subsequently worshipped beneath the gibbous moon through the land of Minar.